Kolkata, the capital of West Bengal, is a city steeped in history, culture, and colonial legacy. Among its many historical landmarks, the city's tram system holds a unique place as one of the oldest operating tram networks in Asia. Introduced in 1902 during British colonial rule, the tram system has long been a symbol of Kolkata's urban identity, embodying its colonial past, environmental sustainability, and a slower, more communal way of life. However, in recent years, the West Bengal government's decision to phase out the tram system in favor of modern transportation infrastructure has sparked significant public outcry. This paper explores how the discontinuation of Kolkata's tram system has become a focal point for civic resistance, with nostalgia serving as a powerful tool for critiquing state led urban modernization. Drawing on Svetlana Bloom's concept of restorative and reflective nostalgia, this study examines how the tram system's discontinuation has elicited emotional responses that transcend mere transportation concerns. By analyzing media discourse, local press coverage, and public protests, the paper argues that the tram has become a symbolic battleground for competing visions of urban progress. The findings reveal that nostalgic sentiment surrounding the tram's discontinuation is not merely a romantic longing for the past, but an important critique of state endorsed urbanization and the erosion of cultural heritage. This case study contributes to broader theoretical discussions about the role of nostalgia in urban social movements and the politics of heritage preservation in post colonial cities. Svetlana Biom's distinction between restorative and reflective nostalgia provides a useful framework for understanding the public discourse surrounding Kolkata's tram system. Restorative nostalgia seeks to reconstruct the past in its idealized form, often through the preservation of physical artifacts or traditions. In contrast, reflective nostalgia is more critical and self aware, acknowledging the impossibility of returning to the past while using it as a lens to critique the present and imagine alternative futures. By examining these two forms of nostalgias, this paper demonstrates how the tram system has become a site of civic resistance, where emotional attachment to the past is mobilized to challenge state endorsed visions of urban progress. Restorative nostalgia in the context of Kolkata's tram system is characterized by efforts to preserve the trams as symbols of the city's colonial heritage and cultural identity. This form of nostalgia is evident in public campaigns to save the trams, which often emphasize their historical significance and unique place in Kolkata's urban fabric. For example, social media posts and local press coverage frequently highlight the tram's role in shaping Kolkata's identity as a city that values its history and traditions. Media discourse often frames the discontinuation of the tram system as a loss not just for Kolkata but for the world, emphasizing the tram's environmental benefits and their role in promoting sustainable urban living. Public protests, meanwhile, use the trams as a symbol of resistance against state endorsed urbanization, which prioritizes modernization and economic growth over heritage preservation and ecological consciousness. The West Bengal government's decision to discontinue the tram system has sparked widespread public outcry, with citizens mobilizing through social media, local press, and public protests to voice their opposition. Social media platforms like Twitter and Facebook have become key spaces for expressing nostalgic sentiments, with users sharing photographs, personal anecdotes, and historical facts about the trams. These posts often emphasize the tram's cultural and environmental significance, framing their discontinuation as a loss not just for Kolkata but for the world. Local press coverage has similarly highlighted the emotional and cultural dimensions of the tram system's discontinuation. Articles in newspapers like The Telegraph and The Times of India have featured interviews with historians, environmentalists, and ordinary citizens, all of whom express a deep attachment to the tram. Public protests, meanwhile, have taken the form of rallies, sit-ins, and even art installation, with activists using tram as a symbol of resistance against state-endorsed urbanization. For many protesters, the tram system represents not just a mode of transport, but an essential part of Kolkata's historical identity. Restorative nostalgia is evident in calls for the revival and continued operation of trams as a means to maintain the city's character and heritage. Activists, urban conservationists, and long-time commuters often frame the tram system as a symbol of colonial era urban planning, environmental sustainability, and a slower, more human way of life. Their arguments frequently center on the idea that Kolkata is losing an integral part of itself, one that must be actively restored and protected. Others with the movement approach the issue with a more reflective form of nostalgia, emphasizing the emotional and cultural loss rather than a concrete demand for restoration. For these individuals, trams serve as reminders of personal histories, childhood memories, and the poetic charm of the city. Artists, writers, and cultural commentators often invoke images of the tram in literature and cinema, portraying it as a melancholic yet cherished relic of a bygone era. Instead of demanding a complete return to the past, this perspective focuses on documenting, commemorating, and celebrating trams as part of Kolkata's unique identity. Svetlana Vyom's framework highlights how the movement is not just about transportation policy, but also about deeper anxieties regarding urban change, modernization, and the erasure of collective memory. The protests reflect a broader tension in Kolkata between heritage and progress, continuity and transformation. By mobilizing nostalgia as a form of civic resistance, Kolkata's residents are asserting their right to define the city's future on their own terms rather than accepting state endorsed visions of progress. This resistance is not merely a romantic longing for the past, but a critical engagement with the present and future, using the past as a lens to imagine alternative possibilities for urban living. The case study contributes to the broader theoretical discussions about the role of nostalgia in urban social movements and the politics of heritage preservation. It highlights the importance of understanding nostalgia not as passive longing for the past, but as an active and critical engagement with the present and future. As cities around the world grapple with the challenges of urbanization and globalization, the case of Kolkata's tram system offers valuable insights into how citizens can mobilize nostalgia to resist homogenizing forces and assert their right to shape their urban environments.